So when we are talking about, the invasion of the European Union countries and the UK as well, we already always talk about certain abroadians and their cultures. I say abroadians to, talk about all of them at the same time and not upset any culture specifically. But you know that some extremists and some radicals are a bit more problematic than others. And we have this from some countries in the Middle East that have figured out that, yes, some people can be problematic and they have to get rid of them. John Ganges, UAE political commentator on GV News, now has confirmed that the Muslim Brotherhood, this is an organization, is controlling councillors in Birmingham, where they only allocated social housing to Muslim families. Non-Muslims are excluded. This is the UK, where UK citizens have become second-class citizens. So we already see these cultures displacing locals, and people in the UAE and in Saudi Arabia, they already know that these organizations, these extremists, this is what they do. And the extremists cannot do that in Saudi Arabia or the UAE, because they will get punished with full-on Sharia law. So they go to the EU, they go to the UK, they go to Germany, and they do all that what they want because of suicidal empathy. Because that's what you have the German politicians crying, shedding tears because, they were offended. But this is the reality. And the people in the UAE and the people in Saudi Arabia are laughing. These people is like we have in Venezuela, the Tren de Aragua. It's like a country decided to accept all our gang members. Oh, come, Venezuelan gang members and thugs and dangers and terrorists, come here, we're gonna hug you. Yeah, but that is nonsense. Counter-extremism advisor warns the UK is becoming a global power base for radical Islam due to Keir Starmer's weakness. Not only Keir Starmer, but 20 years of UK politicians as well. And this is what's happening. These Middle East countries, and you would say this is a problem, that many people say that all Muslims are the problem. No, not all Muslims are the problem, because if 1.2 billion or 1.4 billion people are the problem, then we can give up. If 1.4 billion, I don't know how many Muslims are in the world, that's plenty, there's a lot of them. If all of them are a problem, then you can essentially just turn off the switch. Okay, we are done. Okay, we are done. But it's not that way. It's the radical extremists the problem. And in these countries like Saudi Arabia and UAE, they know very well how to get rid of them. And then they go to these countries that are more lenient, that are more, let's act like the Care Bears. Let's act like the Care Bears with this. Oh, we're like the Care Bears, like hugging all this. Well, I'm going to share this by Leilani Dowding. Amjad Taha speaks to cluelessly surprised Camilla Tominey, and he says, the UK has more extremists than the Middle East. Let that sink in. The UK has more extremists than the Middle East. The Muslim Brotherhood is banned in my country, the UAE. It is allowed in the UK. Islamic Relief is registered charity and a charity here in the UK. But all the way in Saudi Arabia and the UAE, they are banned because of the investigation that showed this charity gives money to terrorist groups in the Middle East. So if you're a taxpayer in the European Union or the UK, you are being duped into giving money to these organizations that are giving, essentially money and guns to terrorist cells in the Middle East. How about that? You like it? Do you like it? That's what Keir Starmer is doing. And that's what the Tories and Labour have been doing all this time. They are not listening to anybody. That's because we in the West have suicidal empathy. The Middle East deals with extremists. Our establishment nurtures and protects them, even gives them money. And this is
And you've been talking about Britain's extremism problem. You're somebody who speaks out against anti-Semitism. You speak out in favour of moderate Islam as opposed to extremist Islam. What's your analysis of the state of affairs in Britain? Because we've got the Labour government right now considering defining Islamophobia in a way that some say might open the back door to blasphemy laws.
I think you have more. Well, thank you for having me. And I think you have more extremists in UK than you have in the Middle East.
Really?
At this stage, absolutely.
Really?
The things that some of the Islamists say in various mosques, and we have been seeing that online, the terminology they use, the analysis they make, the statements they actually make.
I mean, I would say that myself. I mean, I'm a Christian, but I don't identify myself with every single Christian in the world because, in my opinion, from my view, there are some Christians that are really crazy as fuck. There's no other way of naming them. They are crazy as F. So, no, that can be extremism everywhere. Only that you know that Islamic extremists are, let's say, a bit more special than Christian extremists. But, well, let's continue.
They would not be able to say it all the way in Afghanistan, for example, or in Iraq.
So how has this been allowed to flourish in the UK? What's your analysis of that?
In the name of democracy. So the Muslim Brotherhood, who are the Islamists, who are the main ones, are ruling and controlling in various press when it comes to the Muslim society and community in the UK. They control the whole narrative, and the Muslim Brotherhood and the Islamists are the radical Islamists. They are the Islamists, and they use the freedom of speech.
Yeah, they are the ones who are weaponizing the freedom of speech. That's when you have an actual weaponization of freedom of speech. Oh, you need to allow me express myself. Oh, you need to allow me to do whatever I please. This is my freedom of speech. Not then the United States, J.D. Vance calls them out on this, and the UK and the EU has this completely backwards and even are drawn to tears. This is what I tell you. This is what I tell you. How can this be happening? How can this be happening?
In a manner where they will be anti-Semite in the name of freedom of speech. I absolutely stand against that, because I think anti-Semitism is not an opinion, it's a crime, and a crime against humanity. And once you allow that, on the 7th of October, for example, when it happened, the genocide against the Israelis, what I saw and what we witnessed is the fact that some Islamists all the way from here in Small Heath, in Al Amrak, in Birmingham, and other areas, we saw their voices. It was pro-Hamas.
Yes.
And Hamas, as a force which carried that genocide in Gaza and also in Israel, it's actually the armed forces of the Muslim Brotherhood.
So you have all this, and you have to wonder, why have this? It's really only, oh yeah, it's by design. I already answered that. And the question myself on a video. You can find that video on my Jesus Enrique Rosas channel. The video is called How Governments Use Illegal Immigration to Control You. And that illegal immigration can include, of course, abroadians that can have, let's say, some approach to culture and violence very different of locals, and can essentially help these governments cause the chaos, so the population is easier to control.
Muslim Brotherhood in my country, for example, UAE, where Muslim, where Arab, is banned, but however is not banned in the United Kingdom.
So it should be banned?
Absolutely, because they use the freedom of speech to censor your right to speak against them. And when they say, they use the terminology Islamophobia, it's just to stop you from criticizing the Islamists and the Muslim Brotherhoods.
And the thing is that the term Islamophobia has been pushed heavily by not only people like Sadiq Khan or Keir Starmer, but all these journalists as well. So many politicians from every side. Nobody wants to criticize them. No one wants to raise their voice. No one wants to insert some kind of common sense or sanity in this process. Nobody wants to say the quiet part out loud, because they are afraid of being seen like Islamophobes or xenophobes or whatever.
Form of radicalism. The fact that Islamic Relief, for instance, is registered as a charity here, but all the way in Saudi Arabia, in UAE and other countries is banned because of the investigation that showed that these charities sending money all the way to some terrorist groups in the Middle East.
Yes.
It tells you a lot.
And I want to show you this clip that maybe some of you have already seen, but it's always important to rewatch. This was some 7 years ago. 7 years ago, the UAE's foreign minister issued a strong and clear warning to the West. After multiple terror attacks on European soil, his words sound more prophetic than ever. And if you haven't watched this, well, you're in for a rude awakening.
And let me say this in English so you can understand what I'm saying.
I have translation.
No, I know you have translation, but I just want to make sure you get it right. There will come a day that we will see far more radical extremists and terrorists coming out of Europe because of the lack of decision-making, trying to be politically correct, or assuming that they know the Middle East and they know Islam and they know the others far better than we do. And I'm sorry, but that's pure ignorance.
Yeah, it's like the UK and Germany pretend to know Islam and Muslim better than Muslims themselves. And Muslims, you know, that they know there's this faction of people who make trouble that need to be kept under, you know, under check, right? And since they cannot do their crazy deeds in countries like Saudi Arabia or the UAE, they just go for greener pastures, namely Londonistan. But I would like to know what you think about this in the comments.